Okay, next up we have Spitfire Materials and their Managing Director, John Young.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Leo, for the introduction. I'm a geologist and I've been working in the industry for over 25 years, and it's not often you get a chance to work on large-scale gold deposits, and we put our foot as a company on Aphrodite Gold late last year. It was a merger between Spitfire Materials and ourselves and Aphrodite. We recognised that the Aphrodite deposit was unloved. It'd been through several companies over a period of 15 years, and at the time of our interest in the company, it was valued at around $7 an ounce in the ground. It's a deposit that hasn't been mined and has had over 250,000 metres of drilling by various groups. So not long after getting control of Aphrodite Gold, we spent some time and money and effort on reinterpretation of the geology and working on getting on the ground as quickly as possible and doing some drilling. Prior to Aphrodite, we had two advanced gold projects in Australia, one over in North Queensland and one in Western Australia. The Mulwaree project is only 80 kilometres from Aphrodite and is a significant deposit in regards to it being free milling, high grade, and only 80 kilometres from Aphrodite. So it would be a valuable add-on to Aphrodite at the time we commenced production. We also have a manganese asset that sat within Spitfire when we took over Spitfire in 2017, and we've dusted that one off and looking at ways to extract value for shareholders with the manganese prices increasing over the last 12 months. But our main focus is Aphrodite, and we've been working on that pretty steadily since the beginning of the year. We have 521 million shares on issue. We're priced around 10 cents. The directors and myself, other directors and myself and colleagues control about 35% of the company, and we have about $3.7 million cash in the bank. Neil and myself are the executive directors. We came out of Pilbara Minerals late last year and looked at getting back into our roots, which was gold in Western Australia, and we've aggressively sought good projects, and we're well underway with Aphrodite. As I mentioned, we've got a spread of projects. There they are in Australia, and of course the one that we're talking about is 65 k's north of Kalgoorlie. Kalgoorlie is a wonderful place to work and explore, and of course well known for its super pit and endowment of over 20 million ounces just in the region. We have 70 square kilometres of ground, all granted mining leases. Aphrodite sits in the middle, about 5 kilometres from the bitumen road, straight back to Kalgoorlie. In the instance of putting this into production, there won't be any requirement for remote camps and other costs. We've got great infrastructure, existing bore fields not far away, and we'll be looking to move that along very quickly. We reinterpreted the geology this year, and that really meant going back over 200,000 metres of core drilling directly in the deposit area. We relogged 6,500 metres of that, put a new geology model together, and really what came out of that is that the key to the project is this part of the resource. It's 7 grams, it lies between 150 and 600 metres below surface. A high portion of that resource is indicated, 330,000 ounces is inferred, and that was our first target for this project, is to take the 330,000 ounces, which sits in the resource statement there at about 7 grams, move that up to indicated, and that would give us the confidence to move forward and confirm that resource and actually extend the mineralisation north and south of the existing zones. So the strategy was to do that. We've moved forward at the same time with pre-feasibility studies. Importantly for this project is the metallurgy. An option study was incomplete in the previous PFS, and we're looking at options to how do we process this ore. 50% of this ore is treated via conventional CIP. The other 50% is primary sulfide ore that needs partial pressure oxidation or total pressure oxidation, depending on what your recoveries you need. So those PFS studies are moving forward, and at the same time, in the first drilling program, you can see we've got pretty significant numbers right through the 4 holes that sit in the alpha lode. There's 2 ore lodes within the Aphrodite deposit, and I'll explain that a little bit more on these slides. That's the outline of the proposed pit in the original PFS. We've come in and drilled 13 holes. We have the results for the first 4. The first 4 were on the alpha lode. This is the phi lode to the west. The mineralisation on both lodes extends for over 1 kilometre on both lodes, and we've got intersections on the alpha lode down to 800 metres below surface. So as in many deposits in the goldfields, we can see the system continuing to depths of excess of 1 kilometre. And of course, a lot of the early drilling on this project was concentrated in the top 150 metres. Example of this is one of the sections on the northern end of the alpha lode. You can see that our hole there down at 380 metres below surface has been quite successful with a sulphide intersection on the footwall of 10 metres at 11 grams. That's a significant number and really what our underground will be targeting. For example, these holes here are around, in a vertical sense, 80 metres apart of the intersection, so still quite widely spaced, and we believe we'd have to infill some of this area here to bring that into indicated, but we've just finished the 6,000 metres. We've got another 12,000 metres planned before the end of the year. And you can see on 80 metres south of that drill hole, we still have some significant mineralisation within the alpha lode at depth. This is the proposed pit outline, taking in quite a bit of the high-grade sulphide material down around 170 metres below surface. And of course, we're still getting some very good intersections down at 380 metres, and of course, historical intercepts at 7 grams down to 486 metres. So the continuity on the alpha lode is good. We are seeing some very high-grade lodes that have a structural complexity, and it appears to be that the 4 lodes within the alpha lode dip about 30 degrees to the north and are quite discrete. Out of this initial drilling work and the reinterpretation of the geology, we produced a couple of long sections to assist with our exploration targeting. 2 weeks ago, we released an announcement about the exploration target. We've defined between 500 and 900,000 ounces that sit outside the existing resource. So if you have a look at the long section here of the alpha lode, this dotted line represents the outline of the 1.3 million ounces, and of course, intersections outside of that, both north and down plunge and to the south, indicate that the mineralisation here is open. So we'd expect to come in and drill these areas, extend the mineralisation, extend the resource, and at the same time improve the categorisation of the deposit. And of course our target here is to drill and define mineralisation of over 2 million ounces by the end of this year. So we have a very busy work program. The idea behind doing this is obviously to get to that point where we've got 2 million ounces, and within that define about 1 million ounces in reserve, and of course move to a DFS where we would be looking at 1 million ounce reserve, an operation which mines and produces about 100,000 ounces per annum for over 10 years. So that's the critical mass that we believe we need to make the project work. And of course, in the North Kalgoorlie region, there are a number of operators. The history of the operations there are mainly in the oxide portion of the resources. We believe there's huge potential to build a low-pressure oxidation circuit on the back of a standard CIL plant, and then the other stranded resources in the region that need that type of processing would come to us. So I think we can really build a large project north of Kalgoorlie that takes advantage of a number of other operations which haven't been able to put their smaller deposits into production, and really that's the long-term strategy for us. One of the assets that came with Spitfire, I mentioned we had a manganese asset. It's about 14 million tonnes at 13%. It upgrades to around 40% for export. It was an asset that sat within Spitfire for a number of years, over $11 million spent on the project. We've expanded our land holding there and are now looking to do some exploration and follow up some results that the last lot of drilling here was in 2014, and they had some intersections outside of the main resource areas, up to 22% manganese over 10 metres in flat-lying lodes that haven't been followed up. So we believe we can expand the resource at South Woody Woody and look to create some value for shareholders. So that's a quick summary of where we're at. We've got a busy year ahead of us, and look forward to maybe coming back here next year and giving the results of our DFS. Thank you very much.